Great. We're a minute ahead of the top of the hour, but welcome to the June Gloucester Affordable Housing Trust meeting. We're waiting, we hope, for MJ Whalen to make it. We think she is. We're not sure about Bob Gillis, but why don't we go ahead and we can call, well, why don't we give it a minute till 5 and we'll call the meeting in at 5.
We're a form, right?
Yeah, we are, right? We are.
Yeah,
I'm looking around, I see a quorum.
yeah, I think you could do the roll call.
Shall we do it? Okay, great. So, good evening. I'm Larry Oakes, the chair of the Gloucester Affordable Housing Trust.
I'm Heather Daigle, Vice Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Deanna Fay, member of the trust.
Stephen Boltz, member. Alex Kaufman, member, and the mayor's designee.
Morgan, member of the trust.
And welcome, Steve. This is, I think,
Yes,
Steve
my first,
Boltz's first meeting. You were brought onto the board earlier in the year. So we welcome you, and it's great to have now 3 attorneys on the Affordable Housing Trust board.
That might be a
There's a joke there somewhere.
Who's the third?
MJ.
MJ? Steven?
Oh,
Oh,
Tom does it all.
That's right. So, we've got minutes that have been circulated to the members. They are from our March meeting, so it has been 3 months since we met. We are now endeavoring to be on an every other month schedule starting in 2025, whereas we were meeting every month last year when we had quite a bit of business, maybe ARPA funding, bring that out. We're now on an every other month schedule. Hey, MJ, welcome. Just in time, we just said hello to each other and started the meeting.
Got a lot of traffic.
Do you want to say hello to the audience, whoever that is?
Hi.
Actually, hi.
Oh, hi. Mary John Boylan, member of the trust.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
I was just reminding folks, it's been 3 months since we've met, and we're now on an every other month schedule, but it has been 3 months since we met. We had 1 or 2 reschedulings that have happened, but we're here now and it's June, and we've got an agenda, which is somewhere. Can we pull it up? Is that possible?
I saw it online.
I don't have my laptop.
Well, we can certainly start with,
One copy.
oh, good. Can you pass it to me, or do you want to read
Yeah,
out
for sure.
items? Yeah, thanks, okay. We do have minutes from the March meeting, which have been circulated, so we could, barring any suggested edits or changes, entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the March meeting.
You, MJ, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So, chair and staff updates. So staff updates, we've got a wonderful update just before the meeting,
Yeah.
which is really welcome news to Deanna in particular. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your administrative support that your office and your department are going to give us? Deanna doesn't have to take minutes anymore, so. Which is really.
I was
great.
thinking that was a punchline.
Yeah. Deanna, you've been taking minutes for 2 years, which is great, and we appreciate that so much.
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but Alex,
Yeah, so we will be having our administrative assistant, Allison Battle, do the meeting minutes moving forward. So you don't have to worry about that.
Thanks.
But thank you for your 2 years of service. Excellent minutes.
yeah. So, the second item on this agenda is a carryover really from March. So the Ford School project, I know Stephen would love to get a kind of bit of an update too, as a new member.
Am I blocking you?
But the minutes do a pretty good job of updating on that, but just to remind one another that this is an affordable condo project over on Washington Street that approached the trust and the city at the same time with a problem related to their facade of the building, which is brick attached to stick construction on an older historic building, is failing. And the head of the condo board good thing that they did this, came to the city to appeal for help to tackle what pretty quickly became evident that it's a safety issue, right? This is a building that faces Washington Street with a sidewalk in front of it. There's risk to, passersby and vehicles and the like. And so I think then we pretty quickly learned that, hey, this is, I know, like a lot of affordable projects, a project that doesn't have a lot in the way of reserves, project reserves, 100% affordable. One of the units, interestingly, owned by Harbor Light, our local CDC. So it's a wonderful project that I think the board in our March meeting agreed pretty quickly was worthy of support from a preservation perspective. Hey, this is an asset that's been placed into service in the city. It is providing much needed affordable housing. We've got to make investments from time to time to preserve housing like this. So in that way, we framed this project as a preservation project. And so then we did have at our March meeting, Peter Williamson come from the city, right? And talk to us about a way to potentially come up with the money for the project that would involve some cost sharing between the trust and the city. So I'm looking at Alex because I would love for you to give us kind of, if you have one, an update on, I think I know where things stand as of now, but you may have more current.
Well, that's a good recap of
Yeah.
what we talked about at the March meeting. I think we took a motion that the trust would support that project, splitting it with the city's CDBG program. So Peter Williamson is the manager of the CDBG program. He does the housing rehab and first-time home buying programs through there. We were able to create an arrangement where we were able to just get it under contract and get the work started by using the CDBG funding. So it is under contract now. I believe some work has begun. And the total cost of the project is $195,000. Again, these were.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, for the facade repair. So this was,
Include some windows. There was a question about whether some windows would also get replaced.
yeah, I believe so. I only printed out the first 8 pages of the application. It's like hundreds of pages long. It has tons of pictures you could see. But basically, these are emergency repairs. If we didn't support this project, there's a risk of them losing their deed restrictions and displacing people, which is why it was such a high priority. But yeah, we have paid for it all upfront through the CDBG program. And then the idea here is to reimburse the city half, so that half is covered by the trust and half is covered through CDBG.
I did drive by the building. It is, looks like it's very, all those bricks look very loose.
So I know when Peter was here, and he talked about the historic aspects of the building and it's questionable whether, like, I don't recall, it's not in the minutes, so I don't recall it being registered as historic property, but this application is saying that it is.
Hmm.
So.
I don't think it's on the historic register, but it is an old.
It's saying
It
that
was
the
a school
Forest School
building.
is
Yeah.
listed in the National Historic District and a project notification. Oh, it has been submitted to Mass Historic, because I was
So
wondering.
yeah, I think there's been an attempt to put it on the register. That can be a lengthy process.
But I was
but-
thinking about the CDC, like they have historic funding, historic preservation, so. Are they
Yeah.
not able to approach them for a little bit of money as well?
Well, their application period is closed. Yeah, so they would have to wait a whole year.
Okay. And they have that bucket of money for historic.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, is there action? So the last update I got from Peter was that there would be a contract that would need to get signed at some point.
Contract's been signed.
Okay,
Looks like there's work going on there. There's some kind of.
so is there further action that we need to take from the trust at this point?
No, I don't know if our motion included the amount that we would award. I think we just kind of said like half, but if we want to take a motion to award 100,000.
That's the amount we talked about in March. I don't know if it made it in the minutes or not, Dan. but I just
Yeah, I
didn't
don't think
recall.
it did.
I'm not, how much?
I saw
money is
that
in there?
number.
Yeah, we agreed to fund $100,000,
We have,
that the funding would work through the CD.
Right.
Good. We had a good question here on the side, which of course is relevant, like how much money does the trust have, right?
Yeah.
We did have Bob, our new treasurer, not here tonight, but Bob did check with the city on that question
Yeah.
between meetings, right?
Yeah, I believe we had a standing balance. I don't want to get it wrong, but I know that in one of our meetings, we had that standing balance probably around 250 or so. And then the last round of free cash of the funding that comes from the Airbnb tax is coming in.
On top of that.
So, yeah, we're,
Oh.
And the CPC funding, which
yep, and.
we've signed that contract, another 100 from them.
Oh, okay, so there's
Yeah.
some money
So,
in
yeah,
there, right?
there's a lot.
It's close to, it. Don't hold me to the number, but it's between it's more than 400,000 to be
Yes.
Well, at the March meeting, it was 440,000.
Yeah,
Can you explain how you'd lose the deed restriction? I don't understand how that works.
I mean, I don't know exactly how the mechanics of it play out, but I believe the finance, like if they had to refinance or something to do the work, then the deed restriction may not be able to be paid for.
There's not enough equity with the deed restriction that would justify them. Okay.
Because they're affordable condos.
Right, I understand that. It's just that maybe that there's not, because they can only be sold for less than market. Maybe that equity is not enough
Yeah, that's most likely what it
to
is.
secure a loan. Okay, I just want to understand that.
This was a Wellspring project way back, right?
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it
think
was
so, yeah.
of
Yeah.
a city. It's an old building.
Right.
And that's the unique thing about it is that it's all affordable home ownership that's individually owned by several people. So they don't have the equity to finance the work.
The other question I had, it looked from the packet, the original plan was they would be putting money aside in reserves for repairs and maintenance every month. They've been there for 30 years or whatever. What happened to that fund?
It's just individual people. I think, it really struck me as something where it's like, does this happen more often? Does Harbor Light think about this? Do they try and, avoid that sort of thing when they're working on? I think it's probably just one of those tricky things about affordable homeownership.
It seems like.
I think they've done work too along the way, Stephen. So they've dipped into the reserves periodically to do capital projects over the years. I remember the president explaining that to me, that their balances are low at this point because of other pressing items they've addressed over the years.
So I guess the question I have, it's a great project. I love the building and work needs to be done. I don't have any question about that stuff. But typically on any project I'm looking at, like if they could afford it, they should be borrowing to do this, right? I don't know if they can afford it,
I don't think they can.
but we should know that before we make a grant, we should know that they can't afford borrowing. Yeah,
Yeah, they can't afford it. The housing
How do we
rate-
know that? Is that just,
that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
yeah, how's that demonstrated? Do they just check a box, I can't afford it?
There's income qualifications that you need to meet to use the CDBG program. So Pete handles that sort of thing and doing like an eligibility kind of checklist. But the funding also may be delivered in a loan. It usually is in our CDBG program when someone uses our standard CDBG program to upgrade their home. When they go to sell, they have to pay back.
Yeah.
And actually we get, like the last couple of years, because of the low interest rates, like coming out of those years before then, we got hundreds of thousands of dollars in
Back
program
when they would
income
sell.
coming back. So this program really pays for itself. And I think that's why, doing a CDBG trust partnership on this one makes a lot of sense.
And would that be true for the Affordable Housing Trust funds that we would get that back at some point if they sold, or is that gonna go to someone else?
So there was some discussion about whether it would need to be given as a grant or as a loan. I honestly don't know. It's all kind of like how it's gonna pencil out. Maybe a portion of funds are granted and a portion of them are given out as loan.
Yeah, I understand the overall structure, but it seems like if they were able to buy several years ago at a discounted rate, they're going to be, and they're paying 30% of whatever they've got 70% of their income to do all their other expenses, which should include maintenance and
Right.
repairs. So I would hope that if they ran behind on that, at least going forward, they would start putting money into that. It could pay down a loan. I'd just like to take our funds and put them somewhere
Yeah.
I think
to the other uses we have.
I could get a management company or something.
if I recall, because this was a KPN land trust property before Arborlight took it over. And if I recall, most of the residents there, if not all of the residents, are like seniors, so
Yeah.
they're retired, living on social security.
It's good questions.
Income.
It's a good question. I mean, who knows if it was a land trust, they may have had it with where the owners of the homes only had limited equity and the rest went into the trust, which may have gone to reserves, but also may have been just going into the nonprofit itself and getting lost kind of, but I mean, there are some good questions here, but
It's too bad Bob's not here, because he was part of the KPN land trust, and so he would.
That's the packet we got says that's what they're doing. It says, don't worry, they're putting money away every month for maintenance and repairs. Neighbors, don't worry about it. The condo documents also say they've got to have a reserve and they'll do it every month. I'd like to see what happened to that before I go, here's $100,000. I'd like to know that if the mistakes happen and all these things run by, the skin of their teeth, and there may not be management to keep track of it the way there would be at a big project. But then going forward, we should go, okay, let's make sure they're putting money into it going forward, because not the only thing that's gonna happen to an old building.
yeah, I mean, those are good questions. A good conversation to have. I think though that these repairs just are much more than.
Could we ask as a
Feels like
clarifier?
I would I would want to see those numbers. Like, this is what they can afford. This is what they've been putting away. This is how much they've got $7. They need 195. Okay, we'll find a way to find the rest. They've got $37,000. That's different if they got $137,000. And I just want to make sure that they are putting away some money for the future, because they clearly haven't been doing it now. And if they can't afford it, then we should figure out a structural way to make sure that that can happen going forward. And that problems in the future don't come to us or whoever happens to have money that year, right? So.
Can I pick up on that?
Yeah,
Thanks,
please.
Steve. It might be possible, right, to speak to Peter. We could do that. Either you could, or we could do that together to find out how we underwrote this. Because we really relied on Peter coming out of the March meeting. Just as you explained that our money would be matched and he would really handle the income certification piece that you alluded to. And if there's going to be structuring for the deal to make sure it doesn't run into the ditch again, which I agree completely, Stephen, like these are thin deals and they frequently get overwhelmed by major capital items like this. And I suspect that's what exactly happened here, but
Maybe if we have a dozen of these between
Yeah.
us and other things, we can have one person, some funds to have one person check up on it every once in a while. It's a part-time. He said they're already overloading the workload. But honestly, if it's a structural problem, it's not a one-off. And it seems like if there is at least a structural issue on top of the one-off, that we should be not ignoring it when we're
Yeah.
writing a check.
maybe what we could do between now and the next meeting is talk to Peter and get his understanding from him on how he handled those issues we just touched on, the underwriting of this, taking a look at the residents and also the past history of what did they do with their reserve funds over the last couple of decades? How did that get spent? Because the president made that representation to me a couple of times on the phone when we talked initially, like we've been overwhelmed in the last 15 years or so by other repair items that have not allowed us to get ahead on our
I could believe that. for sure.
reserve.
Yeah.
Well, another thing
And
that
forgive
happened,
that. I just want to know what. it
Yeah,
is.
no,
Yeah.
it's a very good question.
I mean, there's few projects like this around town that were, developed by Wellspring and Herbalife, I guess. And, I have a friend that lives in one of them and, she's sort of the de facto, homeowners committee. And, one of her frustrations is that people don't, pay the HOA and they can't agree on things like repairs. So did this building get this way out of inexcusable neglect? I mean, what's to stop the building from falling down in the future? I don't want to pick on these small projects that are, run by 8 households, but there might be a way to assist them in coming up with a plan going forward, even if we just refer them to people that can help. This shouldn't have happened, in other words, possibly. I don't know, but possibly could have been avoided with more attention to to their asset.
Is that what
seems
you were
like-
kind of saying, though? Maybe Peter Williamson could kind of consult them on how to be better in the future?
Well, I don't know that that's Peter's purview, but perhaps he could. But I do think he can share with us what work he's done in the last 90 days on, because these questions we're asking are good ones, but I do believe the work he's been doing will answer much of it.
And we did extensively talk about this
Yeah,
At
he's out
at
on
that
the,
March meeting.
Yeah.
yeah, we did. We kind of,
You were there.
Mhm.
Yes.
We had a pretty significant conversation about, sort of the critical nature of the repairs and also the limited resources of people that live there.
But also that he would go like that he would be taking on this underwriting work and this
Right, we
look
had-
at the deal and this look at what happened to understand it in the
If people
framework.
aren't paying their
What-
HOA fees, which is what this is supposed to cover.
We don't know that they're not.
I don't know that they are.
This is another building I'm talking about, so it's
We
irrelevant.
don't know, but if they're not, that's a different kind of problem
Sure.
that everyone's been paying and there's just not enough
Absolutely.
money to go around and they need some support.
Yeah.
And we should know that before we write our check.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's the easiest thing in the world to run one of these.
Oh, my God,
Got
it's big enough to have problems and too small to pay for someone to run the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah. I mean,
A friend of mine has no help and, she just,
we should remind ourselves too, right, that it was presented as a life safety issue, right, to this word in March, right? So, and there was a request of us to take it up in that context too. So I just want to make sure that's.
And if I recall,
So-
right, the critical part of it was that the expenses were a lot more money than what anyone had anticipated, just because of the nature of the work and repair that's needed. But the traditional avenues that anybody else would be able to go through
Right.
was what
They
was
don't have
putting
those.
them at risk of losing the affordability, the restrictions on the property.
I mean,
And
what,
so it's
That makes
preserved.
sense.
what they really need is to be redeveloped, right? Because of what 30-year-old affordable project doesn't need to be redeveloped at 30 years, right? Most of the covenants and deed restrictions are 30 to 40 years. Anyway, and these projects all, if they're 202s or tax credit deals, they get redeveloped to the 25th or 30th year milestone because the capital reserves are depleted, the building is aged, and the process is accelerated, particularly in the final years, and it's not surprising that they're overwhelmed by this issue. It doesn't necessarily mean people aren't paying their homeowner fees. It does mean people are very low income. And that it is a tale told over and over again in the affordable housing business that these projects have, but you're right that doing something about it, like a Harbor Light should, would be wonderful to have a Harbor Light come in and find DHCD capital or other public subsidies that could be used to address the physical condition of the building, which is there's probably other issues that are.
The trust
Right around the
might want to fund management support for a group of these. I mean,
oh,
it's not just this building that's gonna have this problem, but what I was looking at was all these brick buildings that were redeveloped.
Mhm.
And so the structural brick becomes a skin
Yeah.
to keep it, and the ties over time, they rot, they
Yeah.
rust.
That's exactly what happened here.
Right. So it's not just this building. There's
Yeah.
probably, I don't know what's happened in Central Grammar, but all of the buildings we've had, we do this. Also, it's a known problem, but if it's happening in small little places where no one has the resources to say, we couldn't pay someone to come in and do a survey 5 years ago because we didn't know. If there's 12 of them, maybe we could say, there's support for this, let's
Yeah.
hire some consultants to come and do a survey. I don't know, but if we can identify
Well, you are bringing, this is a really good segue, right? So we've got a big agenda item on this agenda. So what, I think for this meeting, we need to, we voted in March for the approximate $100,000 commitment. If we don't have an exact number, maybe.
It's
a vote
100,
tonight.
it's in the.
Is it 100
it was
exactly?
100, yeah.
So we're fine.
We're all set, yeah.
We're fine.
yeah.
So this was an update item tonight, right?
Yeah. And I'll say that it is
I don't
usually the nature with housing rehab with low income folks that something didn't work out the right way, but still very important to support them and highlights the importance of having some actual like services to say like this is how to manage funds and things, but yeah, I mean a lot of affordable units that are get created actually through our rehab program, taking older buildings And when it's a multifamily building and you use the rehab program, you're required to deed restrict
Right.
a unit. 90 units of affordable housing were created through our housing rehab program in the last 2 years. So and then again, you get that funding back when the house is sold, so it just keeps going. But yeah, good questions. I think we could dig into it a little bit further. To your other point, a lot of the units that get created that way, they're not managed by the state.
Right.
And so they often go unmonitored,
Managed to.
where you're not doing inspections, you're not making sure that conditions are being met and things. And usually places just don't have the capacity to do that. So yeah, your idea about could fund a study or someone to help manage these things is great. And I think something like that, we would look at in a housing plan. And so the next agenda item.
Right.
Next
Yeah.
segue.
Yeah,
Can I just
Yeah.
make a clarification though? Just because Stephen's new and maybe people don't understand, but the Cape Ann Community Land Trust created about 7 different properties, I believe, in Gloucester. And we have them and created these home buyer opportunities. They're in different scattered sites throughout the city. This is one of
Right,
them.
right.
And then the Cape Ann Community Land Trust merged to Harborlight. So Harborlight is the landowner of this and all of their scattered site projects. So they are like the one that's managing the land. Everybody, owns their own units and everything. But, and I know that Harborlight's making an investment in a couple of projects in the city, which will be happening in the next few years. So it might be a good idea to, bring them in sometime and talk about like how they are, like what is the condition overall to some of these units.
And I'm sure we could do that. And I wanted to also announce on the Harbor Light side, their Main Street project as they've submitted their 40B application for the project that we funded
Excellent.
through ARPA. So that process has started. There'll be feedback provided by all the boards and committees that would normally oversee the project. We have pre-application meeting with them, looks really good. I noticed that their detailed design, they didn't have the clock tower anymore.
Mhm.
I asked them to include the clock tower. They
I
put
thought it looked different. I'm like, this is a completely different.
They put a
design.
weather vane on it as well. But I think it'll be a nice little way to define that area of Main
Good fit
Street.
for that
Yeah.
part of the street.
Great.
We really need some senior.
Mhm.
and it's also ELI, extremely low income housing, which is also something we really need a lot of. This is like 3% AMI housing, so this is the most affordable type of housing there is, so this is
Also,
great.
we don't have assisted living and this is as close as we're gonna get to assist.
It's
any kind
supportive
of-
housing, right?
Yeah.
Support services.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Deanna, just to, Harbor Light owns the land,
Yeah, so they are the.
so it's a land
landowners.
lease. Okay. They
Like
don't,
any condominium, right? That-
Mhm. But usually the condominium association owns
Oh, yeah.
the land,
Sometimes, right?
not another entity.
Bob was part of the Cape Ann Community Land Trust, so
Mhm.
he has much better
Yeah.
historical
Mhm.
information than I.
I'll bring Peter by next time to talk about it and we can also touch base with Harbor Light, see if maybe they want to come. So we could think about it more comprehensively.
They would give us a sense of the bigger picture, which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
where we want to address anything that we'd want to address.
Well, I think you should take on the next and final agenda item though, because I think it could be a place to address this preservation concept
Yeah,
that we're talking about now, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
So the city is preparing to begin a housing planning process. We have dubbed this plan Gloucester's Housing Compass, as it will set the direction for housing policy over the next 5 years. So we have what is called a housing production plan, an HPP, that was created in 2017. There are a couple big reasons for having a housing plan. One, this is a tool to in a very detailed way, understand exactly what the housing need is. How many affordable units do we really have in Gloucester? How affordable are they for the demographics of various different people who have a range of different housing needs? So you'll have a comprehensive housing needs assessment with all the latest data describing all of those things. This is an opportunity to look at development constraints and opportunities to hone in on some specific sites where the city would like to encourage affordable housing development. And then it provides a platform based on all this information and a big community engagement process, public education process as well, to then set policies and gather input on that and then have that set the direction moving forward. The state, through its Chapter 40B regulations, also asks communities to have an HPP that's up to date. Ours is expired. They only last for 5 years. So by adopting a housing production plan, we can become eligible for certain state benefits, basically. So I think the main reason is you could really take a detailed look at what is the housing need and how do we address it and work together to, address any concerns, address any misconceptions, really educate everyone, get more people engaged in the conversation. And then, there are definitely some sites in different locations and things that came up in discussion through the 3A process and everything that we've done through the comprehensive plan. In the comprehensive plan, affordable housing was one of the major issues that people wanted to see something done about. So this is kind of the next step to look at where do we go from here, continuing the conversation. So yeah, we're really excited about it. The mayor is appointing members to get a really good representation from lots of different boards and committees and community stakeholders.
Representatives for
A advisory committee that will basically steward the planning process. They'll be the ones that'll really help out with engaging the community, reacting to different data, having discussions about policy, keeping the public informed through public forums and kind of being some additional capacity for that sort of thing. So we would like to have a representative from the trust. And then we have representatives from the Housing Authority and Housing for All Gloucester, Action Inc. So it's community stakeholders as well as ZBA, Planning Board, Board of Health. So a really broad representation across the board. We were fortunate to win a technical assistance award for the project from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. So MAPC is going to award $50,000 for the project and also provide their staff to give technical support for all the data analysis, mapping analysis, community engagement, all of that work. We do need to provide a match. I have the ability to fund that, but it would be very helpful as it's directly going to guide, I think, a lot of where the trust is going to invest funding and what we're doing here. So I asked Larry if we could put it on the agenda and consider providing a match from the trust for the project. So the total project is $80,000. As I mentioned, MAPC is funding $50,000.
So the need, well, thank you. First of all, thank you for the overview. That's
Yeah,
very helpful.
What's the timeline?
It's a 10-month process. So we are ready to kick it off in August. And then it will be about 10 months from there. The plan will need to be adopted by the planning board. They'll have a liaison on the advisory committee and be updated regularly. It also has to be voted and adopted by the city council in order for it to be sent to the state and approved and certified as a housing production plan.
When is the CPI, the deadline?
That is slated to be completed next month. There will be the final planning board meeting to review all public
Just as
comment.
that ends, one begins.
That's not how one begins, but this is, I mean, the comp plan is such a big, high level thing. That it can only touch, those high areas of housing policy. But this could be something that could get as detailed as establish a working group to monitor, affordable condo units or whatever. I know that there are I would suspect that the plan would have a lot of policy recommendations. There's a lot of things that have been considered for our inclusionary zoning policy and how that's functioning. A lot of different things on that front. As I mentioned, there are definitely sites that have been in community conversation through 3A and afterwards. And this is the best way to have those conversations.
Well, how much tie-in is this gonna have with what the planning board is gonna be working on? They've been talking about,
They have a housing subcommittee and they are focusing on a zoning change to try and get passed before the end of the year. So it is not quite frankly a very ambitious initiative. It's kind of I think what they're gonna ultimately end up focusing on is reconciling to open space recreation residential development districts that we have that are similar, where one is not working so well and the other can be improved. So it's more of like,
I think they're holding off on anything big till
Yeah.
they get, after the election, they see who they're working with.
right, so this, so that,
that's a good point.
So they're holding off on
I've
any
seen
big
it,
changes until after the election.
Be a
until we
lot
see
of
who the
40R
new
recommendations.
City council
here.
is.
right.
I think that's what they're thinking.
I would suspect the housing compass plan, to have recommendations around that. Whereas, yeah, what the housing subcommittee is doing on the planning board right now is just very kind of regulatory based, not too deep of a dive into things.
Do you know? Do you know if the housing trust put money into the first housing production plan?
They did, yeah,
How much did they put in, do you know?
I can look that up, yeah.
Just curious.
Other questions, keep asking.
Are they gonna,
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, the reason that I was curious about the first housing production plan is because it took so long for anything, if anything, really from that got implemented. And that's, I guess, my big concern is that we go through the CPI, we go through the housing production plan,
sit on the shelf? for
and
5 years
everything sits on the shelf and
Well, HPPs, they can be really heavy on zoning recommendations. We'll have these conversations when the advisory committee convenes. But I think the focus of the plan should not be on zoning changes. I think we went through so much with 3A that some of the zoning changes that you would see have kind of been done. And from working throughout the region with many different communities, I'd say that Gloucester has a strong toolkit. There are communities that don't have affordable housing
Sure.
trust, don't have community preservation committee, do not have inclusionary zoning, do not have by right AD regulations. Gloucester has a lot of these things. It's a housing choice community. It's met the best practices for housing choice. So I think that this plan needs to be around policy, programs.
relationships.
And I think it needs to be a big step towards having adult conversations about sites that are gonna be, a lot of different viewpoints about what happens on those sites and this is a big way to say exactly like, here's what the city needs in terms of housing. Let's focus on where we get it. Let's not focus on regulatory changes. Let's focus on how you get 60% AMI and 30% AMI and where you're going to do that.
There's gonna be an enormous challenge
Sure.
around HUD. Like cuts and eliminations from HUD too, like there's gonna be so much unknown stuff.
Did you pick up a little bit?
Oh, sorry, I just said, there's with the cuts and eliminations that are planned for HUD,
Mhm.
that it's gonna add this huge unknown element to any planning.
Yeah.
Tom, you have a question? I wanna-
Yes,
Tom, yeah.
I'm not sure if this is under this purview, but that horrible fire that destroyed that house,
Ed's Mini Mart across the street.
yeah.
Mhm.
What I read about that, which I didn't know, is that type of construction was very cheap construction done a long time ago to have, and the fire department says there was, because of the way the walls were constructed, it was basically accelerated the flames. And that there are quite a few structures in Gloucester that are built that same way, many of which are in the affordable housing arena. Is that the sort of thing that would be contemplated in this plan that the city would be looking at, whether there's a way to address that, to preserve the existing housing, or is that more like a building code type issue?
It is a building code thing, but it is something that, if there's an action we could take of note, you could see recommendation around that in the plan. But I mean, I think we could be more focused on anti-displacement policy recommendations, like having landlords sign an ordinance that says they're going to show their tenants, what their rights are. There's things like that. Programs, I mean, to your point, we have all these incredible nonprofits in the community as well as the city that has the CDBG funding. What's gonna happen if that goes away? How do we fill the gaps? What are the most important gaps to fill? So there's a lot. It could be from just kind of
How do we make up what housing authority does?
some regulatory recommendations, but I would think we would see a lot more policy and programming recommendations, and then really zero in on, here's where a smart growth district would make a lot of sense. And this is what people said about that. This is what people think. A lot of engagement. Let's clear up misconceptions. Let's provide the facts, and get ahead of any kind of misinformation that's out there. I think one of the things a lot of people need to understand is something that we deal with as a trust all the time, is how hard it is to finance affordable housing development and what goes into that, and have some education around that. So it's a big opportunity to really help people learn, and help the decision makers gather the best information. But I don't see it as like this distant plan that has lofty goals, that has a very long list of things to do that will take a long time. I think it should really be focused on, here's where, we see the opportunities, and then it's a next step from there to actually go and, look at a smart growth district or look at something else that we would want to do to help realize those things. But I don't think it should be an HPP that's got like 10 zoning recommendations and talks about unlocking, as much housing supply. I think in Gloucester, we're really concerned about making sure people aren't displaced from increased housing costs and all these things, and providing housing that's actually affordable for people who are here. I think the area median income is around $160,000 right now. The median income in Gloucester is $87,000. I mean, this is absolutely out of control. So I really think the plan should be very much focused on deeply affordable housing and anti-displacement.
If there'll be like an inventory, housing inventory as part of that,
Yeah, we will look at how many housing units there are.
particularly in short-term units that are off the market that we don't really have a number on.
Yeah, some of those things, we do have some information that will help paint the picture. Obviously, like, data won't always be complete, but one of the exciting things about doing a housing plan now is the state came out with a new data set called Housing Navigator. And that was an effort to look at how much actually affordable housing is there, because the subsidized housing inventory is not a measure of how much affordable housing there is, because if a 40B was built as a rental, 75% of the units are market rate, but they're actually counted on the SHI. So this new data set actually shows you how many deed restricted units do you have. And they're starting to distinguish between rent based on income, and then another form of affordable housing where it's tied to just 30% of your income. So there's a lot of nuances around there, and there's a lot of difficulties around the administration side of affordable housing, as we we're kind of talking through. And this really shows you exactly what you're looking at. So I think it'll be a great opportunity to educate the community, have some more difficult conversations that need to be had, and get to some decisions on, some good opportunities for the city that I think, will definitely be things that will come before the trust at some point, right?
Can I ask a couple of very more narrow questions? So when is the interagency committee formed yet, or is it being formed?
I'm sending invitations, and I
Okay.
want to see who from the trust
Okay.
would like to volunteer.
What's our timeline for telling you? who that is?
You can take a couple weeks, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
But we're gonna kick it off on August 11th.
Okay.
We'll have the project team come up here for a city tour, do the first advisory committee meeting, and then we'd like to have some focus groups, so that we could just pack everything into the kickoff.
Who is the consultant project team? Who are they?
So MAPC's housing team,
Okay. So it's them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I will be part of that team.
Okay.
Are you aware of any other communities that have designed their HVP in that fashion as you've described?
Yeah, I can
can
send,
come and
I
take a
can
look
send
at it.
around some example HPPs. Um,
'Cause most of what I've ever read is really zone centric.
yeah, it's actually an area that I have a.
It's usually really zoning centric,
So it's only
It
something.
is, yeah. So I have a lot of experience
Yeah.
doing these plans is kind of what I did most. And we really moved away from, here's a menu of lots of different best practices, which again, in Gloucester's case, isn't gonna do much good because we're doing all the best practices. To more of a detailed, small set of priority things that you're gonna work on. That
This,
aren't
this section of the
all-
street, this, by this old school, like identifying locations, or is that what?
We
By
will.
this supermarket, I'll
That's
say.
what I was gonna, I was trying to be,
So it's,
Also,
and it's actually a
Railroad as the
requirement
image,
for,
yeah.
it's a requirement by
The
the
elephant
state.
in the room, right? There's a
Looks
big,
so
there's a
good.
big
Empty.
empty supermarket in the middle of town. I'll be the one to say that.
The state will require that you list specific sites
Sites
that
that-
you are saying we would support a forty
Potential,
B
yeah.
there or something else, right? Yeah.
it's good. Better that than hypothetical. We'd like to do good stuff for everybody and make it affordable. Let's go. This lot needs some work and here's what we think we should do with it is much better.
It's an opportunity to proactively identify how we'd like the city to.
I mean, that easier said than done. Boy, there'll be some knuckles, right? Pulled out to, when we say this lot in this neighborhood should have 30% AMI housing, we're gonna get some pushback, but that's okay. That's what makes it so it's fun, right? But I agree, being specific is like so important
Yeah.
and great.
Yeah, exactly. I think too, a lot of questions come up, what is the impact on schools? What's the impact
Right.
on sewer, public services? This plan will give us that information because there'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
a very robust mapping analysis of, conserved areas, wetlands, where's the sewer system? Where are flood prone areas? Where's access to transit? All of that will be analyzed and we'll be able to really say, in terms of school enrollment, we'll be able to know, how that is impacted by housing. Well, so this is a good opportunity to collect information, to provide answers in different areas where we haven't always been able to give the most information.
My sense on all of that stuff is there's almost always a good answer to each of those. And nobody knows it. So they go, what about schools? It's gonna cost billions. But if we can have, the answers are already
That old
there.
trope.
Yeah.
I think.
That'd be great to get that, and then it's distill it down into pamphlets or websites or whatever to go, worried about schools? Here's an explainer. Worried about sewer? Here's.
That's what you always hear, school, sewer, yeah.
Right, traffic,
Water.
Water.
immigrants, I'm sorry.
That too.
Or the idea that more development can never keep pace with the cost of supporting development. That's this argument that people make that we need a good answer to that if we're going to win these
So,
arguments.
I think we hear from the community. What are your concerns? What are your questions? And then we utilize this process to have those conversations.
We've had conversations.
I know.
So the request for the.
Also success. I mean, that we went by 20 points in the 3/8 election. It's not a nothing. And we had all those misinformation out there. We had a good campaign, we had a good team, we had lots of resources and we won. So it's not impossible. It's just a matter of, it's gonna continue to be work to get all those.
For the record, Steve is not referring to the trust.
No.
Right.
I'm joking.
We do not have, as a trust, have a position on it.
The request for the board for this evening is to entertain a $30,000 contribution toward the 80. Am I getting that right? Or is that not the requested amount?
Yes, so
Okay.
it would be 30 from the trust and 50 from MAPC.
And that is something we should discuss this evening if people have,
And that would leave us with about $310,000.
Let's talk about, I'm sorry, Deanna, what? Let's talk about what?
I feel like I'm
All right,
talking really loud.
Let me frame it again. Let me frame it
I
again.
turned my hearing aids up to full blast.
I feel like I'm
Here we go.
reading.
Here we go.
Yeah, but
So the cost of this housing production plan is $80,000. It'll cover us for 5 years. So it's a
Oh, yeah, I
5-year.
got that. I just didn't hear what
The
Deanna.
city is looking for the trust to kick in 30 of the 80,
Right, yeah,
right?
I
I
got it.
think we should take a minute and talk about whether we think that's a good idea or not a good idea, because we gotta take a vote on that so that you can go away and get this thing launched in August, right? So, I'll start it off. I think it's a great investment because all these things we're talking about, I've lived it in my other half of my life as a housing advocate, being unable to work with a 2017 housing production plan that doesn't give you a lot of fresh ammunition to win these important debates in the community. So having a plan updated is important. To me, 30,000 is really kind of amortized over the 5 years, right? We'll take in $1 million in the next 5 years if the Airbnb money and CPC funding continues. So we've got a $300,000 application in at the moment, tripling that award if we're successful. We've got, future, what do you call it, inclusionary fees that are likely to come to this board. So we're probably going to take in $1 million over the next 5 years. And I think investing 30 of it over 5 years makes good sense. So that's my pitch
I support the.
for voting yes.
I feel the same way. I feel like all those questions that do come up, I've always thought like there's gotta be an answer somewhere. We can finally have those answers. So I'm for it.
And we get a seat at the table. This board
That's
gets
true,
a seat
yeah.
at the table.
I can't think of any reason not to.
Yeah.
I think I 100% agree.
Okay.
We need that to do everything else.
Yeah.
We don't need it, but we will really rely on it. We
Yeah.
get it.
No, I think we need it. I think we have a responsibility to fund it, first of all. But what you didn't hear me say was that we have $440 million in our funds right now. 100,000 for the Forbes School, 30,000 for this. It leaves us with 310,000, give or take. And as long as I've been on the trust, that's more money than we've ever had, like, in reserve, so.
And I'm gonna bring one issue up after we take this vote that relates to that.
Okay.
To talk about the application that is now live on the website,
Oh, yeah,
right? We want to talk about that before we break.
this is
tonight.
it, like, this is the
Yeah,
first,
our funding, our newly created and newly approved
Graham,
I know,
Affordable
like,
Housing Trust funding application with all the
This is our
steps.
first application.
Yeah, wonderful. Is live on the website.
I think we just voted yes.
So, right, so I think,
Formal vote.
no, right, so let's take a formal vote. This is a vote to hand $30,000 over to our friends at the city to help fund the housing production plan update. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Okay. Great. So, there you go.
there you go. Looking forward to it.
So this is not on the agenda, but I was reminded by you, Deanna, before the meeting today, right? We've got the newly created and approved funding plan live, which is exciting,
thank you. for
and
getting it done.
uploaded onto the city's website. So thank you, because you got the last a bit of work done on that to get it turned on and switched on. So yeah, it's like with the $300,000 that we have after we make these investments is only going to go out the door if someone applies
Applies for it.
for it through the live funding application. So it was suggested that maybe we should talk to Pam Toby and the mayor about doing some press work with you to kind of tell the world that that's on the website and available so that our developers in the on the North Shore and in the community and others see it and know it and hear about it. So I don't know if that's something we could ask the mayor and Pam to consider doing.
Yeah,
Because like what, it'd be great to have the Gloucester Times tell the community that this application is live and there.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I would just add that this was part of our strategic plan. So when I first joined the trust, and we went through the process of creating a strategic plan that was on there is to have,
Yes, I remember that.
a sort of a one-stop application.
Yeah.
It's not quite that, but at least it's an actual, application that people can go on and get the guidelines and apply for funding. So now, like, we've accomplished so much from that strategic plan. We actually have money in reserve and we have a rolling
A live,
application
yeah.
that's live. So
And-
I feel
and
really good about that.
Yeah, and I think beyond an article now, we should be thinking about how to continually beat the drum of telling the development community particularly, or reminding them that our funding is gathering up and we've got an application and please bring projects forth. I don't know how we could do that. Maybe there's an ongoing social media campaign, or we could just commit to doing future press work around this, or other ways the city could be reminding the development
I
world.
think, the best way to do that would be to have the home consortium send a message around. So they're based in Peabody, they manage our home funds that come from HUD. But they, are awarding those funds to developers throughout the region. They actually, once a year, allow folks to apply for like a really good project that they would give additional home funds to beyond just your yearly allocation. So that would probably be a great way to get a message out to the development community that builds affordable housing.
Also
Yeah.
brings up for me, I was reading through our plan, one of the goals of setting up committees of our committee. And one of the projects, many things that we listed we wanted to do was public outreach and transparency, and if we had a subcommittee that was outreach, basically, we could leave this meeting going, okay, you guys,
Yeah.
come back next week with a plan, or next month, next meeting with a plan, and then we could work. I think the way
that's a good
groups
idea.
like this are going to only get work done with committees between meetings.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to be on that. I mean,
I volunteer.
fantastic. My rule is don't say just work unless you're ready to do it. So.
Yeah. That's a really good idea too, since we're only gonna be meeting every other
Yep.
month. So
So let's be in touch.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Maybe if we're gonna meet again in 2 months, that means August, we could. I know, everyone makes that face about August. August could turn into September, but we could form that committee, and I think that's a great idea. Because we gotta tell the world that we're open for business, right? That's what we want. We want this money that we're generating for the trust and this application to,
There's,
It's a good use.
there's other educational stuff that we want to get out to the world. Like, we have the sewer capacity. The world should know that, and we would not be a bad mouthpiece to broadcast that across.
That's right.
So we can, I mean, I can work on it. Anyone else who wants to join, we'll do it.
Great.
But we'll
I think it's a great idea.
again, or on Rocky Neck and figure things out.
So while we've got you, are there any new projects that you're aware of that are percolating that you could share any information about? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I don't have anyone in mind, but if we haven't seen you in a couple of months in this setting, are there any new?
Well, Habitat for Humanity, is hoping to purchase, an old office building at Action Inc. On Washington Street and convert it to 3 affordable housing units at 30% AMI. So I let them know about our rolling application. So they're very excited to see that. They will need a little bit of relief from the zoning board of appeals, so they're gonna start there, and once they get that, I believe that they will submit an application into the trust.
is it too soon to think that they could come and talk to us about the project in August?
I'll ask.
And like just come to a meeting and
Sure.
walk us through some of the details?
Tom? Yep, go ahead.
The Gloucester Housing Authority project on Main Street.
That's the one I mentioned earlier,
Yeah, oh, it's ongoing. It's-
They just submitted their comprehensive permit application.
Okay.
I would keep the trust updated on this. If the trust would like to write a letter of support to the ZBA for the comp permit, I think it would be appropriate given that we have funded the project. So we can do that. I expect the mayor will likely provide a letter of support to that project as well.
Is that being used for public parking now? Is that what the current use of land is?
Yeah, so, yeah, it's, people may not be happy about losing.
Yeah, there's some parking going away.
Do people have to pay for the parking or is it free public?
Next in essence,
It's just kind of like,
chained up.
Yeah, no one's.
I thought it was chained off.
it's not chained off.
I think it's parking, it's always been parking for Halibut Point too, right? That's where you park. when you're
Oh,
going for
yeah, the
chowder.
bird's gonna lose it.
Yeah.
Chowder
I
parking.
went
Yeah.
by yesterday and it said there were surveillance cameras. Maybe it wasn't chained. It was just saying surveillance cameras and no private property.
It's been a parking lot for a
Yeah.
long time.
Parking lot that's next to the old Thai restaurant has a
Yeah.
chain across it. That's private property.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good news. That's one small deal, but it's a new deal.
There's some other exciting ones that aren't quite out in open yet.
Good to hear stuff is bubbling up. That's great.
Okay? Any other business, new business? Anything?
Do
We
you
wanna
want to
discuss?
talk about the CBC presentation?
Oh, right. So, thank you for reminding me. We have a date in August. I don't have enough stuff ahead. Here's the good news.
Let's remember the
I know,
August.
August, who wants to do anything in August? The CPC has invited us to come, as they did last year, to make an in-person presentation in support of our ask for their funding. We've asked for $300,000. Last year, we asked for that amount and got 100. This year, we're asking for that amount again. And we hope this year we'll get the whole $300,000. There is a date, and I'm stalling while you look at your calendar in August.
Good.
And last year, you and I and Deanna and Bob went.
Mhm.
I'm happy to have everybody come or new people come. It's, there's a PowerPoint that we will update that kind of talks about what the trust does and our goals and plans moving forward. And all of that was also included in our actual application that we submitted to the CPC a couple months ago. So we just need to be ready to go in August on that,
It's the date.
live in person.
It's a Monday, that's all I
Yeah.
can tell you.
August what?
He's looking.
I can look too.
I know I put it in my calendar,
Yeah.
but I'm not seeing it.
So what we could do is we could remind the board, after tonight, we'll remind you in a minute, that it's happening and people can say, hey, I want to come. We can put a team together and give me a second. Well, I know what it is. I just need to.
See all the other projects too.
I have the 18th of, that's probably our meeting.
Here we go. This is the confirmation email, August 18th.
Oh,
August
that's-
There you go.
That's,
And I think it's at the Harbor Masters
I just wrote affordable housing.
office. Okay, so
that's us at the.
us at the Harbor Masters office for the CPC's meeting where
It's our CPC, it's our
yeah,
pitch.
in-person pitch. Yeah, so come one, come all.
It's great to, again, like, like now we have report back on.
Yeah.
100%. That's
Yeah.
right.
Right. So hearing no further business, we'll adjourn this meeting, right? All in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye, great. 6:00 on the nose.
Good to see you too. I
to see you
know,
all.
it's been a while.
Welcome,
I just
Steve.
wanted to
Thank
say
you.
thank you.
Welcome.
Very grateful tenant in the.
Good luck.